And there's a nice little grass picture of the horses. As we are ready to, no more. Well, I shouldn't say no more. We had a pretty successful go at it last week with our complimentary video on YouTube. So we had some pretty good viewership, but we're back to mostly Patreon, especially on Thursdays. Again, you have to be a Patreon member to receive these videos on Thursday, and the 100%, because you're going to miss some stuff that we're going to talk about here before the races that you're going to wish you didn't. And Chad's going to go crazy one of these weeks. You don't want to miss that on HISA. So I haven't forgotten that.
Antonio Fresno an 8-day suspension probably isn't going to help anything.
Are they crazy? How could you give someone 8 days? It's the only sport you get penalized for trying harder. It's amazing.
Who got suspended?
A jockey for 8 days for using the whip too many times. And
that thing again?
Yeah, they don't even feel the whip. It's a popping noise. It's completely insane.
The whip.
The whip.
The popping noise. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a certain political class of people.
Correct.
Okay. So we have two big races to talk about, and we're going to get to that in a minute. We've got the 10th race at Del Mar, of course, which is the Pacific Classic, and race number 11 at Saratoga, the Jockey Club Gold Cup. So those are the two big races we're going to talk about shortly. But before we do that, a few things. First of all, I'll tell you what, let's talk about last week and the huge win from Arcangelo in the Travers. So what did you think about Arcangelo's win? Chad, how were you impressed by Arcangelo winning the Travers?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. I mean, all the major players were in the race. I think it was one of those things where it was race fitting to find out who the 3-year-old leader was at this time, and he certainly, rang the bell. All credit to him. It's funny, I guess. We do the show on Thursday, and I'd come on the show and I said, I like Arcangelo, but the training's a little bit unorthodox, and I wasn't sure if he was up to the task. And Friday morning, I watched the horse gallop past my barn, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's the Arcangelo I remember. I don't think he can lose." So sometimes I wish we do the show a little bit later.
Well, that's what Discord's for, my friend.
I don't know what that means.
Yes, you do.
So
I'm going to remind you in just a minute too.
Okay, sure. So basically, at the end of the day, he ran to expectations. He doesn't jog very well, but he gallops just unbelievably. Really good ride from Javier Castellano. Put him in the race, used him the right time, asked the button at the right time, and when other horses tried to come to him, they couldn't get to him. And the Mage camp and Forte camp are trying to figure things out, but I think they just got beat by a better horse. I think Arcangelo is just a better horse. He didn't run in the Derby, and so that's the case. But he's 2 for 2 against Forte, so there's that to be said about that. So I think he's the leader in the clubhouse. And to be honest with me, I know they talk about possibly not running the Breeders' Cup, but to me at this moment, Arcangelo is the Breeders' Cup favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So.
Yeah, you talked about, the one thing was the inexperience, and now that's gone, right? Now it's he's done it twice.
Give credit where credit is due. The horse, and one thing that gets lost in the shuffle here a little bit is this horse was originally broke by Clovis Crane. I think sometimes he doesn't get enough credit for that. So he did end up going to Jen Antonucci in March, but he actually began his early career training in Pennsylvania with Clovis Crane. I think that's worth mentioning.
And Disarm fucked up my exacta with Tapit Trice, so I appreciate Disarm coming from. Actually, he did improve upon. He was at how were the sheets in the race, John? Do you have that?
Oh, let me check.
Arcangelo he was 9-7 in his first 2 races. Well, his last 2 races.
Right.
7 at the Belmont.
He was a 5 when he broke his maiden.
Yep,
broke his. I mean, the thing with Disarm is that the barn has been waiting on this effort for a long time, and he's shown it every now and again, but not consistently. And
Arcangelo ran a 7.
So he duplicated his last race.
7 minus to be exact.
And
Yeah, he ran well. There's no question about it. He's a real horse. The match to me was a major disappointment. I think he ran last. So
Yeah, I wish you'd listen to the show more often.
yeah, me too.
and this, and Disarm had a 12 and an 8 going into that race. So I'm not sure if he also ran a 7 or not, but if so, he was heading in the right direction. All right. And Forte. There's only so many races I guess you can win, right? There's only so many times you can be dominant. Let's take a look now. All right, so this is what we're going to take a look at. This is something called Discord. And Rockface, you could see the screen, boys. So Rockface put this on our channel. So I wanted you guys to look at it.
Rockface is our guy.
What's that?
That's why Rockface is our guy.
Yes. So you can read
We
that.
have other guys that are we have other guys that are our guys too, because I got personal emails. I got one from a great guy named Brian, who said that Chad should present Andy Sterling with an autographed picture of the winner's circle with white chocolate. And I thought that was a great idea.
Just wonder if he's okay that Chad Brown's won for his last 31. I think I actually have just as many wins as him in the last week.
Whoa.
And you're going to have more, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, let me. Okay, so everybody can see that now. So Andy Sterling broadcast personal attacks on Chad on both the Talking Horses segment before the races started and also just after White Chocolate won. What the fuck is his problem? These attacks were worse than the last time, especially on that Talking Horses segment. So the only thing I caught, I'm going to play it.
We don't have to play it.
No, but because there's only one thing he said. And he said, the only thing I could catch was...
It's fine.
Yeah, the only thing he said one little thing that I caught, and that was it. So, not saying I'm giving an excuse. I'm just saying that's...
Look, it's very simple. If Andy Sterling has a problem
remark.
with me, I'll say it on Discord, I'll say it on YouTube, I'll say it wherever. If Andy Sterling has something to say, he wants to get in the squared circle like a man, then let's do it.
So... very good of Rockface to make these videos available to everybody. They could check them out himself in case they weren't involved. It is a total disgrace that a broadcaster voices his attacks like this on a registered trainer. It's pure personal attack, and as he admitted, his attack had nothing to do with stats. It's pure defamation on a live broadcast. So he wanted me to send this to you guys, and I figured it'd be better.
We heard it. You don't have to hear it again, and that's it. It's classless is what it is.
And then this is all on Discord. This is how he felt, Rockface. So you can read that there. Everybody can read
100%.
that.
Everybody should make their complaints to Eric Donovan, and also to Dave O'Rourke.
That's correct.
Now let's take a look at some of our. These are some of the remarks comments we've had on the YouTube, the free one. The healthy somebody. I've been reading sheets since 1987, and last week's Alabama was the slow. That was on last week's show. Let's see. Great show, guys. I am a happy Patreon subscriber. See, that's Rockface. I urge everyone to subscribe. See? I'm a very selective bettor. Been following this horse racing game here in the UK for 20 years, and the effort that Chad, John, and Greg put in the show is without doubt the best racing content out there. I don't bet every horse that John and Chad put up, but the information and opinions they give are invaluable in the long term. I subscribe $10 per month, and the value alone to my studies of this game. So just want to throw that in there as well. We have a new Patreon member this past week. We want to say hi to Al Belgium. So he joined right after our show.
I love a good Belgian waffle.
I'm sure he's heard that once or twice.
I'm just telling you, I wouldn't mind getting a nice Belgian waffle.
Well, you just ordered dinner. Why don't you go for the Belgian waffle?
All right, Joe, give me a Belgian waffle. Okay, we're good.
All right, let's talk about this week's race. We'll start with the time of day, which means East Coast Saratoga Race 11, Jockey Club Gold Cup. And we have, how many horses? We have 8. So the favorite, well, as far as the odds are concerned, the morning line Proxy is at 2-1. 9-5 is Rattle and Roll. So those are the two horses to beat here. But the 2-1 shot, Proxy, the one horse, John. What do you think about Proxy as a favorite coming off a Grade 3 win at Monmouth?
Well, he's 0 for 2 at the distance. He has the advantage of breaking from the rail, but I don't think he's as good this, even though he won his last race. I just don't think, figures wise, he's as good as he was last year. He ran faster numbers last year than he's running now. And at 2-1, I would try to beat this horse.
Yeah, he had 2 9s in his last 2 races after running a 5 before that. Chad?
Yeah, I mean, look, he comes out of a race where he beat Wayland Springs. Wayland Springs came back and won a Group 3 in the race afterwards, and I think won the Island. I wasn't ultra impressed with it. That was on the undercard of the Haskell. His last 2 races, he's been equipped with cheek pieces, and I'm not sure he really runs through the cheek pieces. The first time when he wore him in the Stephen Foster, he looked like he was kind of confused and running away from him. And, last time he kind of made the lead and, battled a little bit and just he was a superior horse over the other horses in the race. But, I mean, this is, to me, a tougher field. The interesting thing and the thing that the connections I would think should not be happy about is the fact that he's drawn the rail again, and he's run 5 races on the inside, and he did win the Grade 1 Clark from the rail, but that was a 6-horse field. It looks to me like when he's drawn inside, he has to use himself a little bit earlier in the race, and in a race that's devoid of a lot of early speed, it's going to be up to jockey Joel Rosario on how he's going to handle that. Now, when he won a 1.25 miles in the San Diego handicap, he came from next to last and rallied to finish second. So, he's a versatile kind of horse. I think he's better off the pace than on it, despite the win in the Monmouth Cup last time. But I the way I look at it, I think he's going to be kind of more forwardly used.
He's got to push off from the rail, Chad. He's got the rail, right. And he has enough speed where there's not a lot of speed in there. I think he's going. I really do.
The 4 is Rattle and Roll. Now, his sheet numbers are a lot more consistent in this year alone, and he's been pretty hot this year, Rattle and Roll. 2 8s, then he ran a 6 3 starts ago at Pimlico. Bounced a little bit to a 10, came back with a 7 last time out in the Stephen Foster. So Rattle and Roll is a 9-5 shot, John.
Yeah, but he really never runs a bad race. The 10 that he ran 2 starts back when he won, that was with no rest off the 6. So he figured to react that day, and he did, and he won. Now he's got more time off. This is the horse to beat in here. There's no question about it. He never runs a bad race. Since he ran those 8s last year, he just continues to get better, and he's got time off. It looks like they were pointing for this spot. He's the horse to beat, and hopefully we could beat him.
I agree. I think Rattle and Roll is definitely the horse to beat in this race. He's a horse that we've come very close to buying into for several months now. Just couldn't get anything done when push came to shove. Look, he's a talented horse. I thought he might have been the best horse in the Stephen Foster last time. His stablemate kind of got in his way a little bit. He made him check up a little bit. But look, you got Brian Hernandez, who doesn't ride this track very often, coming in at an unusual distance at 1.25 miles with a horse who's pace dependent, who's going to come from behind. And I don't think they're going to go very fast. I know they didn't go very fast when he won the Blame 2 races back. But I think it's going to be interesting to see the strategy that they incorporate and how they go. Look, Rattle and Roll has been here all summer, but believe it or not, he just shows one work on the main track, and everything else that he's done has been done on the Oklahoma track and the train track across the street. So even though he's been there and settled into his barn all summer long, it's interesting to note he just had one day when he was on that Saratoga track, and he ran at Saratoga one time last as a 2-year-old.
2 years ago, he had a very bad experience. He bolted
and was off the board. But I mean, look, he was the winner of the strong St. Louis Derby from last year. It always produces some top quality contenders the following year. So there's a lot to like about this horse.
What happened to him, by the way, Chad, as a 2-year-old? It says he bolted on the sheets. He never even finished the race. He was eased. Do you remember that?
That was a 1 1/8 race. They try to stretch him out, and everything went wrong.
Maybe he'll remember that Saturday, going into that first turn.
The one thing I will say though, from a pedigree standpoint, being out of a Johannesburg mare, being by Connect, and I know Connect won the Pennsylvania Derby at 1.8 miles, but it doesn't really scream that you want to go 1.25 miles. I know he won the 1.316 Pimlico Special and the Ben Ali, but it's a smidge further. And when he went 1.5 miles at Keeneland on Breeders' Cup last year, it was too far. So, is this the sweet spot? I'm not going to take anything away from him. I do think he's the horse to beat, but you got to be in it to win it, and we're going to try.
So, novice question here. So you're talking about working out and where he's working out. So you have like a home
There's
location.
a main track, and then there's a track across the street that they train on called the Oklahoma track. It's a training track. They don't race on it; they train on it.
So then, when you take your trip to one of these other venues, what do you? How much time do you spend there normally?
Everybody's different. Every trainer has,
Go ahead,
no, but every trainer has their own philosophies when they ship in for a race or whatever. It's all to each their own. I've always been a proponent that you want to get a work over the track that you're going to run at, especially if it's a big race and you have a high quality horse, a smart horse.
So, some trainers won't.
No, some trainers
no.
won't.
Interesting.
Right.
Everybody's different. Well, I mean, for example, some of the horses in this race, the 2 horses coming in from Canada, they arrived on Wednesday, and they don't even run on the dirt for the most part. They train on the poly track. So,
wow.
Certainly, different strokes for different folks, as they like to say.
Okay. All right. So Clapton, we take a look at his sheets, and he's been a little bit up and down this year. 8-10, 7-10, 8. So now he's hopefully going to break that trend with a new trainer.
Dun, 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 dun.
Mr. Summers, how is he going to break that trend?
Well, I don't know necessarily that he has to break the trend to be successful. I mean, I think their numbers are very similar, right? It's probably going to take a 7 to win this race. Whoever runs the 7 probably wins, maybe a 7 minus. Similar horses in this field. We feel like he's a horse who's never really had a break. He's run 22 times in 25 months. This is kind of the longest gap that he's had in his whole career. In it being 7 weeks, this is the plan that the previous connections had, and I couldn't be more appreciative to the Arundel team. Brian Cohen, his wife Fanny Olson, who just welcomed in their second baby last week. But look, I mean, giving us a tutorial on everything to do with Clapton. I went down to Gulfstream. We breezed them a couple of weeks ago with another Arundel horse named the Skipper 2. He did everything aplomb that week, and then obviously once we had IRAD secured to ride him, he was aboard for the breeze last Sunday, and it was just kind of a getting to know you experience for IRAD, but he was able to go good fractions in 24-4, 48-2, 101, 114, 127, and gallop out a mile in 141. And when you're going a 1.25 mile distance, it's not about what the final time is in a workout, especially when you're talking about 6 days before a race. It's, can you sustain? Can you keep going? Can you keep going out at a nice rate of pace? And the one thing that this horse is, he's not brilliant in what he does. He's not going to knock your socks off and win a race by 5 or 6 lengths. That's just not him. He's a grinder. He's a fighter. He's a blue collar kind of horse, and he's a horse that in the short period of time that we've gotten to know him and work with him, we've fallen in love with him quickly. He loves what he does. He's really, really forward animal. Very, very smart horse. He'll play around a little bit in the morning time, but when you put the saddle on and the bridle on, then he locks in and ultra focused. And those are qualities that you can't find. You can go to a lot of different sales and look for babies and look for 2-year-olds, and you can guess and you can try and think that you see things or know things, but the ability that His Highness Sheikh Rashid has allowed me and our team with Mumar and Abdullah as well to kind of be aggressive in trying to find horses that we think are top level horses that are ready to just kind of take it to the next level. And Clapton's one that we kind of circled on, and we're guessing. It cost us a lot of money to make this guess, but if we're right, then we're rewarded with a Breeders' Cup win and you're in slot, and certainly a nice prize money with the purse being $1 million. So All credit goes to the previous connections and also His Highness for allowing us this opportunity, and we'll see what happens on Saturday. But we wouldn't trade places with anybody else in this race, that's for sure.
And you're getting Irad Ortiz. That's got to be worth something. I mean, he's a big time jockey in big time races, and I
Well,
think
I
that's
think
going to make a difference.
the thing
It's
is, John,
nothing away from the guy that rode him. I didn't say he did anything wrong. It's just
listen, it's just different, and obviously he's the king of Saratoga. He's
Right.
winning the title by 20 plus wins. And the thing about this race, and when you look at the sheets, John, you see a lot of the top contenders, the top 4 or 5 contenders. And Tyson's kind of the unknown with his polytrack form, but the main contenders, they're very similar horses: 7s, 8s,
Right.
7s, 9s, a sprinkle of a 6 or something like that. So it looks to me there's not a ton of early pace in this race. It's a 1.25 mile race, which is an unusual distance that a lot of these jockeys don't have a lot of familiarity with. So you want the jockeys. It very much can turn into a jockey race at the end of the day. And so if you're going to be involved in a jockey race, why not have the best jockey out there? That's our opinion.
I wish he was tied for like the lead going into that race.
Listen, when
instead
you got $1 million,
being thumped by 20.
if you got $1 million on the line, I think it doesn't matter. Everyone's going
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, Clapton in that Grade 3 Ghost Zapper at Gulfstream, the one race that he won a few starts back, that was the 7. That's the fastest he's run. That's the best sheet number he's ever run. And so it wasn't surprising. Then we saw the 10. So now back to the 8. And now you throw on Irad Ortiz Jr., getting 8-1.
Well, the horse that Clapton beat that day in the Ghost Zapper was O'Connor, who rallied really well to run second in the Charlestown Classic $1 million race last weekend. So certainly,
he got beat by Charger last time out, who's highly regarded, and he's a real horse from the Pletcher barn. Listen, 2 starts back, he got beat by the 4 Rattle and Roll, but what does that mean? He's going to turn the tables on Saturday.
Tyson, the 6 horse, is very lightly raced. 4 wins out of 5, all on synthetic.
So how do we know what he's going to do on the dirt? Not only that, he's never even worked on the dirt, like Chad said.
Yeah.
Well, Josie Carroll said he worked on the dirt at Palm Meadows last year. So we need to try and see if we can find out if we can go back and look. Actually, I'll see if I can look it up. But I think that this thing's kind of a twofold thing. Obviously, this race wasn't coming up as the strongest, deepest field. She was already looking at the race with Duke of Love. And look, Tyson's owned by Hillendale Farm, which stands Curlin and so many others. They're looking to make stallions. This is a stallion-making race. There's a lot of history in the Jockey Club Gold Cup and the horses that have won it in the history. It's always been at Belmont. This is, I think, maybe the first or second year at Saratoga. But there's a lot of history there. And this horse is from the family of Arcangelo. His mother is a half-sister to the mother of Arcangelo. So there's some synergy there and some horses that ran well on the dirt. Yeah, so this horse ran breezed at Payson in earlier this year and breezed in 50 and 49 and 51. Now, I know that track is slow.
That's real slow, though.
That tells you what you need to know. Churchill in 2022, 49 and change. Palm Beach Downs in 2022, 50, 51, 49. It doesn't scream that the horse really loves a dirt track. And the thing with horses like this, and John, I know how much you love polytrack races. The thing with Tyson is if he doesn't lead early, and to be honest with you, when he's led, they went a half in 49 and 1 and 49 and 4. They're going to go faster here. If he doesn't lead, it's not just whether or not he handles the dirt. It's whether or not he handles
the in his face for the first
time. The kickback. And he's the son of Tappet, which we know can be kind of a quirky kind. So, look, he's the oddball in the race. His numbers on the sheets on the polytrack are very, very fast and need to be respected. And Josie Carroll, in my opinion, is the best trainer in Canada. And I'll put her up there against anyone. And I know that there's some good trainers in Canada. We just lost a really good one, Ricky Griffin, a few weeks ago. But I think that she does a great job. But there are question marks, and they're going to come into this race having questions as far as other connections in the race kind of have an idea of what they're going to do.
Yeah, did so Pletcher trained the horse, and then something must have happened to the horse after the first win at Gulfstream last year.
Yeah,
And
he was off. He was off for a year.
yeah, then the trainer change, and this is, by the way, a jockey change.
But
So
when Mike Tyson left Don King, things just weren't the same. So just keep that in mind.
all right, I don't know where to go with that, but yeah. Speaking of those sheets that Chad mentioned, 5, 2 starts back, followed by an 8 in the last start in the Grade 2 win.
Yeah, if the race was on synthetic, then he would be the horse to beat. But it's a total guess. No one knows whether he's going to handle it or not. And I've seen so many of these horses that don't run a step
Well,
when they ship in and run on dirt for the first. Some do, obviously, but as a general rule, not such an easy thing to do.
so shouldn't we then maybe appreciate Carroll's second horse, Duke of Love, at 15-1, also synthetic, until the last race, finally went on dirt at a Grade 3 race and won. And
Well, he was
now
on dirt last year. If you look at that wet track, second to last race of the year at FE.
the turf.
Fort Erie. It's the
Fort
second leg of
Erie,
the Canadian.
right?
Triple.
Fort Erie. So he at least has a win on the dirt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
15-1.
but isn't he slower than both?
Well, he ran an 8 at least.
Yeah, and off the 8, he figures to react. Off a 9,
This
he
horse is by Cupid out of a Smart Strike mare. I don't think this horse wants to go a mile and a quarter. It went a mile and a half at Woodbine and got beat 27 lengths on the grass. Went a mile and a quarter in the Queen's Plate and got beat 16 and a half lengths. I know it won at Fort Erie, a mile and 3/16, but that was a bad group. Ironstone, Ice Road. It was a small field of 7. They went very, very came home very, very slow. I think Duke of Love is a little outclassed. I think this is ownership of my racehorse, taking a stab at a great one.
All right, and Bright Future, the 6-1 shot. Pletcher Castellano combo at 6-1 ran a 7 last time. Has 2 7s this year, 3 7s out of
But
6.
there's a problem. The bad race he has, the 28. I know it was 2 miles, but it was also without Lasix. All this horse's good races were on Lasix, and he will have no Lasix on Saturday. So keep that in mind.
He's also inconsistent. I mean, he runs a 7 and then bounces. He runs a 7 and then bounces. So he's running another 7. I got a chance to watch him school yesterday. He looks like a typical Curlin, kind of a well-made horse, but he's not like the biggest, strongest through the withers. I think he's a nice horse, but I don't know. Ultimately, look, this is a good spot for him. This is a good opportunity for Bright Future. In that older horse division to have a breakthrough victory, but he's gonna need to keep improving. I know the 100 buyer last time and the 7 on the sheets puts him right here, and he beat Speed Bias who beat Clapton. But I just need to see a little bit more consistency again from his outside post. It's gonna be interesting to see what Castellano does if he puts him into the race a little bit earlier too to try and use some of that position from the outside post. Look, it's an unusual distance here at Saratoga, going a mile and a quarter. There's a long run. You're basically running through the stretch. You have about
you start at the top of the stretch. You have a long run into that
quarter mile, but you don't want to get hung wide. Going a mile and a quarter here, you definitely don't want to get hung wide going into that first turn. So Castellano's going to have to use him a little bit to get himself into position. And again, this is going to be a very tactical race, and we'll see how that plays out.
All right, John, your pick?
I'm going with Chad. I'm going with the 5. Clapton exact is over the 4 and 8.
Chad?
Yes.
And I'm going to
You
go.
don't want him to pick another horse, do you?
And I'm going to go 4, 5, 7. Exact.
Thanks.
All right. I didn't say in order. Now, let's talk about the West Coast racing.
You're lucky because if you won in any particular order, you may have been doing this by yourself.
Yeah.
You're actually very diplomatic about that.
All right, Del Mar. We go out west. Actually, there's a bunch of other graded stakes races, so it's a good card. A lot of big riders out there at Del Mar for once. And we've got a 1.25 mile race, another 1.25 mile race, Pacific Classic. This is going to go off late for us Easterners, about 9:15 on Saturday night. So the 5-2 shot, Go Rocket Ride. That is one of the favorites. Matter of fact, that is the favorite right now with the 3-1 shot, Arabian Night. Next up, the number 9 and the 4-1 shot, the funded to number 5. Let's start with the 1, Go Rocket Ride. Mike Smith on board. 3 wins out of 4, John. And Go Rocket Ride, the sheet line is pretty nice, 10-9, 9-7.
Yeah, the horse has never done anything wrong. I mean, he's short on experience, that's for sure, but he's a nice horse. He won the Haskell, he ran well that day, and he's just getting better with each start. He ran a lot better than I thought he was last time out. And if he repeats, obviously he's going to be tough. The problem is he's 5-2. Do you want to bet a 5-2 shot in this race is the question.
Yeah, you were getting 12-1 at the Haskell.
Right. But he's never gone backwards.
Nope.
He's never gone backwards. So
That's
an important thing. If he repeats the 7 with the rail, he'll probably win.
Yeah, and it's not like he had a big new top. I mean,
it wasn't a big
steady.
jump up. Yeah, and listen, Mandela's taking his time with this horse. He's a Hall of Fame trainer for a reason. He gives him the right time between races. Right after the Haskell, they said that's it. They were pointing for the Pacific Classic, and here he is. And you're getting Mike Smith, so why not?
John, what are your thoughts on weight for age here? So Go Rocket Ride and Arabian Night are both going to get 6 pounds. Going a mile and a 16th, a mile and a quarter. What are your thoughts on is that a big deal? I know in Europe they make a big deal about weight. Is weight a big thing for you?
With sheep players, it's very important. It always, even if it was 6 furlongs, it would matter. I mean, and you're getting, that's a good point, Chad. He's getting 6 pounds. And at this time of year, I don't think it's that big a deal. If it was earlier in the year, 3-year-olds against 4-year-olds, I really don't want to do that. But at this point, at this time of the year, I think it's fine. I really do. And again, you're getting 6 pounds, so that has to help. And it has to count for something.
So what about Go Rocket Ride, Chad?
I mean, look, he's a horse that I didn't know what to think of going into the Haskell, and he ran the right race in the Haskell. Now, it was much slower than the ultra impressive Cyberknife from the year before, who ran about 3 seconds faster. But who
holds the track record for the Haskell, by the way?
That being said, I mean, he did what he had to do, and he pulled away the right way. I don't think that Mike Smith had to really think too long about if he was going to ride him or Skinner. But he did obviously choose Go Rocket Ride on a track that Richard Mandela's had a lot of success in over the years and is enjoying a very good meet, 7 for 27, 26%. He's a horse that certainly figures in an older male division out there in California, which is kind of wide open. I mean, you can make cases for Defunded and Stiletto Boy, but they're always kind of a once in a while rather than a consistent horse. So if you like the up-and-comers, I can't blame anybody for taking a shot at Go Rocket Ride. I know you don't have really value there, but certainly the horse has done nothing wrong.
Speaking of Defunded, that's the 5, the 4-1 shot with Baffert. And the last 3 races have been his best. The sheets. He did run a 6 last year, but in his last 3 races, he ran a 6, an 8, and a 7. 2 of those wins, won the Gold Cup Grade 1 race at Santa Anita. What about Defunded, John?
Defunded's a solid horse. I mean, 4-1's a fair price. I'll tell you one thing. Baffert has Arabian Night and Defunded in the race. I would much, much, much rather bet Defunded than Arabian Night. Arabian Night at 3-1 is one of the first horses I'll be tossing out. I don't like that horse at all.
My concern with Defunded is the fact that he's run 6 times on the Del Mar dirt course and it's just 2 for 6. Normally when Baffert runs them, they're amongst the favorites. And This horse is really kind of disappointed. I understand he's won at Del Mar before. He won the Native Diver back in November of 2022, and he won some other races. But it's a concern because Del Mar, and we talked about this at the start of the Del Mar season, Jonathan, that horses really like it or they really don't. And if you're 2 for 6 over there, it's a little bit of a concern.
But the numbers he ran, like last year, his worst race of the entire year, he had 6 starts. Del Mar he ran the 17. He never ran that bad in his life. But that being said, his last race at Del Mar, well, the very last race he ran a 7.
Okay.
So, it's okay, but he's probably going to go backwards off the 7 anyway. I'm not saying I like the horse, but I just like him.
I know he's a proven commodity at 1.25 miles, but I mean, if you watched the race last time, it didn't look like if the race was a little bit longer, he was going to reel in Senior Boston or slow down Andy. I thought they both ran a better race than he did.
They did, but I will say one thing. That day that he ran last time, the inside was not the place to be, and Senor Buscador was wide and came circling. So he may have been with the track last time out, but he's 10-1. So
yeah, I mean that right there. You've got a horse that's got 2 6s and 3 7s. In the last 2 years, you're getting 10-1. I know, you might bounce. I mean, he's bounced a couple of times when he's run big races, but you're getting 10-1. So,
yeah, a lot of times the horses from the Todd Fincher barn seem to have a hangover.
The worst race this year, by the way, was the 10 2 starts back, which was at 1.25 miles. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a concern, the distance. But he looks like he's bred for it. Isn't Mineshaft could run all day, no?
No, Mineshaft can run all day, and I don't think the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile was his best performance, but probably an epic after party afterwards.
Arabian Night, by the way, I mean, 10, 10, and 8.
10, 10, and 8, and he takes 6 months off between races. I understand now he's coming back relatively short for him. He was last seen also in the Haskell, and he had an easy lead. What excuse did he have in the Haskell?
Yeah, what's
and now you want him to go 1.25 miles? I'm curious how they laid this horse at 3-1. I don't get it. I really don't.
Well, it's the hype machine. It's the Bob Baffert hype machine.
Well, he's got the funded in the race too. If you're looking for Baffert, but
the funded wasn't $2.3 million 2-year-old in training purchase. The funded I think was much. He was only $210,000.
Yeah,
so
but
you could have bought 10.
This owner spends whatever.
If
Baffert says he wants this horse, this owner just goes no problem, and he just keeps bidding. So,
besides the 3 favorites, and then Senor Buscador, any other horses worth mentioning, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, look, Skinner obviously, was unfortunately had to be scratched from the Kentucky Derby, but came back. I thought his race at the Los Al Derby was better than it looked. Looked like he needed one off the layoff, and I think he'll run a little bit better for Hector Berrios, taking over for the aforementioned Mike Smith. I think you also have to mention Slow Down Andy because he ran a winning race last time, and it was the second race back off the layoff. If he can see out 1.25 miles, which is obviously the question with those connections, I think he's in the thick of things. They ran Anarchist and Slow Down Andy on that July 29th card, and both were live and both ran second. Anarchist came back and was a winner last week, an emphatic winner last week, and maybe Slow Down Andy can finally get that breakthrough win that the barn has been waiting for. At 8-1, Slow Down Andy is certainly a horse that I don't mind taking a long look at. And Stiletto Boy, he was really, really disappointed last time in the Stephen Foster, and I know he's taking the show on the road a lot, but it's nice to have him finally have a home game. He's been training at Del Mar for quite a while now for Ed and Steve Molger. Keith DeStormo's probably going to take over the call, one more time. And he's a horse that, to me, is interesting, the way the race sets up. I know he'll see out 1.25 miles, and I think he's a horse, again, at 8-1 that I'd like to use in my tickets with a horse like Go Rocket
Ride. Who's going to be the favorite?
I think, and Jonathan's going to disagree with me, I think the favorite ship is going to go to Arabian Night, despite the fact that it's ship.
I hope you're right, Chad. I hope you're right.
Who's your pick, John?
I like Go Rocket Ride. There's an interesting 20-1 shot, but I'm almost positive that he can't get the distance. The 2-horse off of numbers, he kind of fits. He's got 8, 9, and 7 in 3 out of his last 4 races. But I don't think he's going to be able to get the 1.25 miles. But I like Go Rocket Ride the best.
Well, if Katona, it's almost like the scene in Any Given Sunday when Shane Falco comes back at halftime and they go, you got or the replacements. He goes, you got nothing to lose. All the pros, all the starters are coming back tomorrow. Antonio Frezzo's looking at an 8-day suspension. Let's just rock and roll. Let's rock and roll on Katona. Just hit him 8 times and rock and
Whip
roll.
the hell out of him.
Send him down the road. And here's an extra shot for you, Heisa. Boom. One more.
All right.
Anyway, I like Go Rocket Ride the best. I would use Defunded, Slow Down Andy underneath, and probably Skinner. I'm betting against Arabian Night, that's for sure.
5, 7, and 11.
No, one over, the one on top.
Yeah.
Go Rocket Ride with the 5,
7, and 11.
Correct.
Chad?
I'm going to take the 7, Slow Down Andy. It's been a memorable summer for Doug O'Neill. Certainly rooting for the connections.
Me too.
And I think he works out a good trip. So I think Slow Down Andy to the wire over Go Rocket Ride with Money Mike's left hand. And then I like Stiletto Boy and Go Rocket Ride underneath.
7 with 1-3.
7 with 1-3-11.
1-3-11. And again, don't forget there's a couple other stakes races at Del Mar. And is this it for Saratoga, by the way?
This is it. And next week there is no Naira, so we have off for Naira. I guess we'll do an out-of-town race if you want. Oh, but Del Mar will still be running, so I guess we'll be doing Del Mar.
So, but as far as our recording times, that might change, right? Maybe. Who knows? We have no idea.
Only time will tell.
That's all. Yeah, that's it. But next week we're hitting into September, and that means this week is actually the 2nd. So September 9th. Taking a look ahead, what do we got? I see the Del Mar's got the Grade 1 Debutante and the Grade 2 John C. Maybe. And we got a couple of
Del Mar Futurity.
Del Mar Debutante stakes. And there's 2 Breeders' Cup Challenge races at Kentucky Downs. Have we done Kentucky Downs before?
No.
Yes, last year.
Oh, we did?
Turf Cup and Turf Sprint.
Okay.
So maybe we'll be doing those races. That's possible.
$2 million race on Saturday over there.
What's that?
There's a $2 million race on Saturday over there.
And a couple of $1 million races also.
Okay.
The Gun Runner, because the track's owned by Winchell, even though Gun Runner never ran on the grass.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
See you next week.
Thanks. Bye.